I remember seeing things about the Friendship Center, and I didn't know what that was, but it had nothing to do with me.
I was hurting. I was just broken.
You know, I wouldn't want to live here if there wasn't a Friendship Center here, because domestic violence is here, sexual assault is here, stalking is here.
But I couldn't get my courage up to ask for help until about my third trip here.
I think the most surprising thing in Helena would be how much actually happens here in Helena that people aren't aware of.
He stabbed me 5 times and strangled me, and his full intentions were to kill me that night.
I came to work here in October of 1990 and knew very little about the Friendship Center. It had been around quite a while at that point, but I hadn't had much experience. Two important things happened during the decade of the 90s that I was here. One was passage of the Violence Against Women Act, which provided grant funding for serving domestic violence victims, and the other was the O.J. Simpson trial, which moved domestic violence from kind of a hush-hush, we don't discuss that in polite company, to dinner table conversation. There were certainly victims of domestic violence in Helena that weren't aware that the Friendship Center was here, had no idea what an order of protection was, didn't know they could call law enforcement. So I think the need grew exponentially between 1990 when I came and 2000 when I left, primarily driven by those two things.
If we didn't have the services that the Friendship Center provides, for instance, on a domestic violence call where a victim has been injured severely or is in fear of the suspect perpetrator, if we didn't have that Friendship Center to be able to call and say, I have a victim here who has nowhere to go, we can't find the suspect, and her safety is a concern of ours, can we have your help to put her somewhere? And something that some communities don't have resources to do.
I never imagined in my wildest dreams I would need the support and the services of the Friendship Center. And I can't remember much about those first few days after the assault, but I do remember showing up. I showed up, was greeted with a lot of compassion, understanding. The biggest thing for me at the time was validation. I needed some validation that what had happened to me was real, that I hadn't made it up. Even though I had the trauma on my face to show for it, it was a very, very difficult time. And the Friendship Center gave me a safe place to be able to go and be believed, I think.
I felt like it was my fault. Like when you love somebody so much and they hurt you to the extent that I was hurt, I didn't feel like I could move past that. I didn't feel like there was life past that. And then I got the help and I got the support, and it was like, it wasn't my fault. There are people out there that are just angry and mean, and it doesn't mean that you did something to cause that.
The first time he stabbed me was in my artery, so I was, they immediately obviously took me to the hospital, and then they life flighted me to Seattle, and I spent, 4 days in a coma and suffered a stroke and turned my life upside down. His full intentions were to kill me that night and, to leave our 3 children without a mother and a father. In a way, it was a blessing because I never ever knew how I was going to get out. I never knew how I was going to get away from him. I had a wonderful woman reach out to me from the Friendship Center shortly after I got home, and it was absolutely the best thing that ever happened. I I would not be anywhere, I would not be where I'm at in my recovery without them.
It's very difficult to be the one that needs the help and to reach out. It's extremely difficult. Since I've received the help here, I've been able to not, as I've mentioned earlier, not have to hide anymore what happened to me and not be ashamed. I would have never married into an abusive relationship with my second marriage had I had the help from the Friendship Center the first time. I'm not the only one, and there are so many people here that have their lives back because of the Friendship Center, and as in my case, have been able to pass that down to their daughters so that won't happen to their daughters, and to break this cycle that I didn't even know was happening.
The Friendship Center, deals with almost 1,000 people a year, women, children, and it needs to be supported. I think whatever anybody can do is helpful. I can't imagine communities not having this resource. I can't imagine what they do, and we are very lucky to have that in Helena.
Thinking about where I was at that point in my life when I found you guys was so hard, and I felt like just completely broken. And then I came here and I had, just love, like it was incredible. And without that, I wouldn't have made it.